and his satanic assistant, Alex Houdini, both of whom can't go into churches without vomiting.
Without vomiting. I love it. I don't know. I could play that over and over and over again. Are you a Doctor Who fan, Reeves?
I'm a. Let me put it this way. I'm a Tom Baker fan.
Oh, me too. My favorite. He's my favorite. And the reason why I'm asking is because our good friend David Frond, who's no longer with us, sadly, but he did that for us, and he sounds so much like Davros almost.
Oh, well, that's my era. That
Yeah.
Doctor Who, Davros. Yeah, that's what I grew up with. So that's why I think my favorite Doctor Who's are John Pertwee
Mine too.
and Tom Baker. They're the two that I grew up with. So they're kind of imprinted in my brain. And all the other Doctor Who's are like, yeah, okay, yeah. But I kind of grew out of it when I got older. I kind of watched it as a kid, but as I got older, I know some people can be quite fanatical about it. You know, it's like anything. But yeah, I kind of grew out of it. But the earlier Doctor Who's, yeah, they were pretty scary stuff.
I just loved it because you mentioned John Pertwee, and I love how they had his arc being stuck on Earth. He's trying to get off, and he's trying to everything. And some of those stories just ruled. They were awesome.
They were great. I mean, I think I've had many conversations in the past with Gareth about TV shows back in the day and how great the stories were. I think it's a lot to do with we're kind of bombarded with media these days, and it's everywhere. It's on the internet, it's on the TV, it's on your phone, it's everywhere. And the stories and the scripts and everything become very diluted and very weak. And back in the day, they had to make a really good story because, let's be honest, they didn't have very big budgets and they had like crappy sets and stuff. So it had to make the story really good, didn't they?
Well, exactly. And when you're a kid, though, your imagination, it took over for all the special effects and all that. I don't think I ever really cared about the lack of, finesse with the special effects and the monsters and the creatures. And, I don't think I'm like, how the hell do those dialects move?
Yeah.
And wait a sec. When they started, how are they getting up the stairs? What?
Well, they got jets on them, haven't they? They got jets on the bit, but they shoot up the stairs.
I can never understand that.
The film, what was it called? It was two films, weren't there? Made I think it was the 60s, wasn't it?
Yeah, with Peter Cushing.
Peter Cushing. That's it. He played the Doctor. Really kind of eccentric Doctor. And those films remind me. I don't know why, but they remind me of the movies Quatermass. The films Quatermass.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
they got that kind of thing about them.
Had that feel.
Yeah, that kind of feel. Yeah, those are the kind of things I grew up with watching those kind of programs. And I remember watching the Dalek films and watching them fly and stuff. And I'm thinking, oh wow, this is amazing. This is like, this is real sci-fi. This is like long before Star Wars, long before all that came around, and my complete childhood was completely changed. But yeah, it was just weird. I mean, growing up back then and growing up in that era, it's really hard to convey when you talk to somebody. I had somebody say to me the other day, "Cool, you're really old, aren't you? You grew up in the 80s." And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty old, and I did grow up in the 80s, and it was pretty cool. And I think that it was a great. Then again, I suppose anyone that grows up in any era, in any decade, that's going to be great for them, because it's more about you being a young person and growing up and discovering all those things that you thought you couldn't do.
Exactly. But there was so much greatness, growing up in, as you put it, the 80s. And I mean, yeah, there was a lot of knockbacks, but I mean, for the most part, the 80s it was such a carefree decade, really.
Yeah,
For people growing up, obviously in
uh,
that sort of thing. I
yeah,
mean, you had your pitfalls, obviously, but I mean, when you look at like again, when you look at stuff that TV and film and some of the late 70s, early 80s, whatever, some of the films that came out and literally defined a generation, like
oh
again,
yeah,
like Star Wars.
oh,
You
loads of
mentioned,
great films. I mean, it was the video, the home video revolution as well, which kind of that kind of imprinted those kind of films that would you would have never seen at the cinema. I mean, I
yeah,
saw so many films when
hmm
I was I was under 18, but I was still watching like horror films and stuff because you had access to the video shop and
yeah,
you had older brothers and mates that looked 18 that you can go and hire those films. And to be honest with you, when you look at those films now with everything that's out there and everything's around like now, when you look at those films and you go back and think, oh, because to rewatch something, you think, oh, it's pretty rubbish. It's pretty tame. It should be like a PG. But it's kind of like when you're younger and you don't experience something and then you experience it for the first time. I remember, I tell you, one of the films that I watched when I was a kid,
hmm
it was at a party and it was like a watch party,
yeah,
not watches, as in watching something, you know.
yeah.
And it would be
Come on,
weird
we're
being
all
a kid
staring at
going
our
to a
watches
watch
here. Reeves,
party.
what's going on?
But no, so we were at this like because obviously I'm going to start getting telling all stories now, but
That's
back
fine.
then,
That's fine.
okay, well back then, okay, I don't know about you, and we're all we're in the same age bubble.
Yep.
So if you had a mate with a video recorder, he was
Yeah.
kind of like up a notch from all your other mates because
Exactly. Yeah.
he had a VCR, and it didn't
Yep.
matter whether it was Betamax or VHS or Video 2000. It didn't matter because it played tapes, and that meant
Yep.
you could hire films.
hmm
So we had a couple of mates whose parents were quite well off, and it was like we're going to go around their houses because their mum and dad are going out. They're going to a cocktail party because they were like, what the mum worked for like on a makeup counter in some big department store, and the dad was a banker, so they always went out at weekends and left their kid on their own because he had all the toys. And we
hmm
went round there and we went and hired these films. And I remember the joy of being in this massive bungalow with all my mates, and we had like free biscuits and crisps and Panda Pops. It was all there,
hmm
and watching these films, and it was like all these films were like just stuff that we would never normally get our hands on. It
hmm
wasn't like ultra violence or anything, but it was stuff that you should be a bit older to watch, but it was great. It was just such an experience, and of course, you'd never watch all the film because
No.
you'd end up fast forwarding through most of it because
Yeah.
it was a video. You could do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But no, I think that the video revolution, and even the computer revolution, it kind of gave you that kind of scope where you knew that there was better things on the horizon. And here we are 40 odd years later, and it's video games now are just so ultra realistic, and
Yeah.
technology itself that you would look back then and think, oh, that's amazing. I remember having a conversation with my mate
hmm
and saying one day we're going to have a computer. Oh, this is in the age of Atari 2600, and I've still got my
Oh,
Atari.
classic.
And it's like I remember having a conversation with my mate saying, one day we're going to have a computer, right? And it's going to be like the size of a book, and
hmm
we're going to carry it around with us. And he's like, "You're mental." And
yeah.
I'm not looking into the future. It's just like
Yeah.
I'm looking at Star Trek and stuff like that,
hmm
and I'm just thinking, well, it's going to happen. It's got to happen. And of course, here we are all these years later, and that's what we got. It's amazing.
Rick. Hold on. Rick goes. I remember hiring Motel Hell. It's funny. I remember that movie. I remember it well, and it's funny because they just brought that out onto Blu-ray. But yeah, continuing on with movies from the 80s and stuff.
Hmm.
Again, the whole how you were saying, VHS and
Yeah,
beta and whatever else, and you can fast forward and everything else, and I remember we used to go and rent a whole bunch of movies and sit there and watch them. And I remember recording
yep,
them on blank
yep.
VHS so we can have a personal copy for personal collection. Yeah, right. Wait a sec. Did you do that? Yeah. We had like 3 movies on a tape, and the quality was garbage. But who cared? Who cared?
I remember. Are you saying that? I remember we used to call them screeners,
Yeah,
and
screeners. Yeah.
there were two types of screeners. There was the one that somebody had was really rich and had 2 video players and used to tape, do tape to tape. This is before they had like macrovision and stuff where it would
Yeah.
make the picture pulsate, and you could get a box that you could put between the two, but then you're getting all a bit technical. And so they also they had the tapes you could get from like old Jack down there with the you most probably had this, the guy that used to come round in the car who used to have the box of tapes at the back, and he had his
Yeah.
car. And so we used to have this guy that comes around, and these people that I knew, right? I was about I must have been quite young, because it was the year that ET came out of the pictures.
Okay.
So it was quite a long time ago.
Mhm.
And I remember this guy said, "Do you want to come around my house tonight? I got a film." I'm like, "What have you got?" "I got ET." And I'm like, "Oh my god, he's got ET! It's just at the pictures. How have you got it on video?" And so there was about 18 kids, right? All like under the age of, well, not very old. And we're all in this kid's house, right? And we're in his front room, and his parents have gone out, so no one's in the house. We're all watching. The only person there that's older than us is his older sister, who just
Mhm.
doesn't care. She
Yeah.
just did like, what, do what you want, I don't care. It's just a really angry teenager. And we put this film on, and we're thinking, it's going to be amazing. I've seen Starburst, I've seen all the magazines. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And we put it on, and it's literally trying to watch it through, like, just distorted snow. It's like a really, really, really hot, like
Yeah.
a 20th generation copy,
Yeah.
And but we watch it,
Mm.
and we're watching it, okay. And I look at my watch, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, I must be about 11,
Oh,
10, 11
wow.
years old.
Wow.
Of course, I'm thinking to myself in my little kid brain, well, it's all right because I only live up the road. My mum will be fine. I only live up the road. It's all
Yeah.
right. There's no phones in those days. You don't ring your mum.
Yeah.
And in my head, I think my mum already knows where I am watching ET, but she didn't, because well, literally, when I walked in the door, do you know when you get shouted at so
Oh,
bad
yeah.
that
Yeah.
you can't move? And I was just stood on the spot. I walked in the door, and my mum went absolutely mental at me. And she's like, "Oh, no, I'm going to call the police, and I was going to have, get them to take you to the police station to teach you a lesson." And I'm like thinking, "Oh, right, I'm really in trouble." But I was trying to explain to in my kid head, I was going, "Yeah, but Mum, I've just seen ET." And
It
she's
didn't
like,
matter. Yeah.
"I don't give a shit who ET is."
ET, what the hell is that?
So yeah, so technology was great, but it also got me in trouble.
Well, it's funny because I remember I think I was maybe 12 years old when the first Friday the 13th came out.
Oh, excellent, yes.
And I remember Fox showing the cut version at like 8 o'clock at night and the uncut at 10 o'clock. And I kept I go to my parents, I'm going, I'm staying up till 10 o'clock to watch the cut version.
Yep.
And they're like, hell you are. You're not old enough. You can't see that. And I said, yes, I am. I'm staying up, right? I managed to wiggle my way into watching it, but oh my God, was that an experience? Watching that uncut, wow. Traumatized me for life.
Yeah, there are films out there like that. I mean, I think the first sort of what I call horror film that I watched even with friends was Evil Dead. Now you watch it and you think, oh, it's a funny film. It's quite funny. But back then, I watched that film and I'm like, oh my God, this is like
crazy.
And I had nightmares when I got home. I literally slept with the light on. My mum was like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I just want to leave it on for because safety and stuff." And they're like, "What's the matter with you?" And of course, then we had over here in England, as anyone from England who might be watching will know, they started to ban a lot of these films because they were like video nasties.
Video nasties, yeah,
Yeah, and they
exactly.
started to ban them. Like I Spit on Your Grave and films like that. They were like banned for a long time. And I mean, they're available now. You can most of them you can get now, but they were they were just taken off the shelves, and
Mm.
unless you knew, unless you were friendly with like George down the video shop, and you'd go in and he'd have like a copy under the counter,
Yeah.
but they weren't, they weren't on the shelves. You couldn't hire them. You couldn't get them. So yeah, that was a big thing over here in the sort of early 80s. This whole video nasty thing. There was a movement to sort of take all those films off the shelves. It didn't. Well, it kind of worked, but it,
Mhm.
it was just like anything. People, it's new, isn't it? It's like anything new, and before people get used to it. And I mean, now you look at stuff, some of the crazy stuff you get on YouTube, and you think, wow, And back then, it's like you're getting. It's not even real. It's make believe, and yet people
Yeah.
want to ban it. So, yeah, it's
One
weird.
one of the most notorious ones, obviously, video nasties that just recently was finally released there in the UK is A Clockwork Orange.
Clockwork Orange, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually saw that on well, I can say now, I actually saw that on Pirate, because at the time it was banned, and I had a friend who's like got hold of it, and it was quite a good copy as well. So yeah, I watched that, and I didn't understand it to start with. I watched it and thought, I'm thinking all the way home. I'm thinking, why did they beat that old man up in the subway? What did he do? I think, I was a kid. I don't know. I just watched it and thought, why are they wearing the makeup? But yeah. So yeah, but I got to see that film, and I just don't got a clue. I didn't know what was going on. But back then, you would watch the films. I mean, I remember I was quite lucky, because back in the day, my dad worked away. He worked in America. He worked in Canada. He drove trucks, so he
Mhm.
was away from a house for quite a few months.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate, as in growing up in the 80s with my mum. She was very cool, very laid back. She says to me, like, as long as you're not out thieving, like, or beating old people up, or doing stupid shit like that, excuse my French, but if you're doing stuff like that, then it's cool, and you can have your friends around, you can watch video nights, whatever, but just don't go out and do crazy stuff. And yeah, I respected that. So it was like, I remember my mum saying to me, well, there's no point me having the video player uh, downstairs, because I don't really use it, and your dad's not here for 6 months of the year because he's truck driving. So you can have it in your bedroom if you want. And
Mhm.
listen, I'm not 12 years old, and I got a VCR player in my bedroom. All right, it's connected to a black and white telly, but and I remember my mum coming in one evening. She got quite angry with me, because you're a kid, right? And you don't need to sleep. You can
Mhm.
stay up all night. And I had she taps on my door and she goes, Reeves, are you still watching the telly? I go, yeah, I'm just watching a film. What you watching? Um, Escape from New York. What is that then? Well, it's got Snake Plissken in it. All right, Snake Plissken. All right, well, don't be too late then. Like, she was thinking, the fuck, Snake Plissken?
What kind of
Not
twisted
shithead.
person is that?
Yeah, but no, it was great. I mean, you can tell my enthusiasm. It was the 80s was a fantastic time for me. I went to the right school. I had some great mates, and which I still got.
Mhm.
And kind of everything was an opportunity.
Yeah.
Everything you did was an opportunity. And all right, not all of it. Some of it was a bit crap, because you always have that. A lot of people. I had a conversation a while back with somebody that said, "Oh, I really hated school. I really hated going to school." I didn't. I didn't really hate school. There was a few annoying kids at school that would,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
they would just try and take your sandwich money or whatever. But overall,
Is that a reality? I don't think
yeah,
I ever had anybody attack me for lunch money, but
yeah.
really?
Over here it was. Yeah, no,
Oh,
we had
wow.
right. So we had this guy, right,
Mhm.
and every lunchtime.
Yeah.
See, back then, in at school, as whoever's watching this will know, you always saved your lunch money for cigarettes.
Mhm.
So you'd all chip your money together, and you'd buy like 20 smokes, and
Yeah.
then there would be like a group of you, so you all had cigarettes for lunch times or break time, so you could go over the shops and have a sneaky smoke. But that there was a dilemma with that, and the problem with that is, if you're going to spend your lunch money on cigarettes, then you're not going to get any food, and you're not going to get your jam donut and your pasty from the shops, or buy some sandwiches from the tuck shop. So, or your chips and beans or whatever you're having. So what you would do, well, I know it's bad, but what we used to do was we used to go around and find some kids. We're like, you don't want that sandwich, do you? And he's like, well, I was going to have that. You don't want that sandwich, do you? I'll have that sandwich. And then that's one. And then you go to another kid and go, you don't want that drink, do you? And well, I was going to, well, I'll finish it for you because I'm a 5th year and you're a 3rd year. And it's like stuff like that. So, yeah, so we used to do stuff like that. But sometimes you get caught by the teacher. Well, actually, karma, because I remember going over the shops thinking, yeah, I got my cigarettes. I'm over the shop smoking because I'm 14 and I know it all. Apparently, I know everything in the world. So I was over the shops, and the teachers would come over, and what they would do is, where we used to go over the shops, they had 3 exits.
Yeah.
One was to a housing estate. One was to back into the school, which you didn't want to go to because you don't want to run back into school.
Yeah.
And one was to the playing fields, and then you could kind of go back around and kind of sneak back in. We got ambushed one day by 4 teachers, and 2 of them were PE teachers, so we were crap at running because we were smoking and stuff. And we all got caught, and we all got put on daily report. I don't know if you know what that is, but basically you get given a sheet of paper, and every day for however long they choose, you have to go round and get all the teachers in every lesson to sign it.
Oh, wow.
And it's a pretty crap because you're kind of restricted and you have to go to lessons. I know that's crazy, isn't it? You're at school and you don't want to go to lessons.
Yeah.
So I'm on daily report, and then I get a detention as well. And so our deputy head of house, he's like, all right, Mr. Cooke, I've got this book here, and you're going to spend your whole weekend copying it from page to page. And I'm like, you're all right, sir. Okay, all right, no worries. And I because I had a plan. I knew what I was going to do.
Yeah.
So I get home, and my mum had already had a phone call and a letter from the school to say I'd been caught smoking.
Yeah.
And of course I get the 3rd degree from her. And she goes, well, you're going to do the what he's told you to do, and you're not going anywhere all weekend. I'm like, yeah, all right, I'll do it. And I said to my mum, I said, so if I do it real quick, or I get on and do it, can I go out with my mates? And she's like, you do it first, and then we'll then we'll discuss. So I get this bit of paper, right, and it's like a whole chapter, but I got to copy it all out. I had all these A4 sheets of paper which had to be double-sided. So I got this ruler, right, and I got all these pens. I taped all these pens to this ruler, and then I got the ruler, and I'm like trying to write with it on the first thing, and then so it copies it all out, because where it's on the page and the sellotape is wearing away, the writing's like normal here, but down the bottom of the page it's like this big. And I'm like, well, that isn't going to work, but I don't care because I just want to go out with my mates. So I do all this writing, and then on Monday when I go back to school, this is the thing that really got me, was I walked into the head of house, the deputy head, whatever, and he's like, oh yeah, let's have a look at your and he didn't even look at it. He just picked it up and went and chucked it in the bin. And he's like, get out of my sight. And I'm like, I could have just put lines on there and just give it him, and he didn't even look at it. He just went and ripped it all up and chucked it in the bin. And I walked out of there, and then within 2 hours I was back over the shops having a sneaky fag. So yeah, that's being a kid.
School was so much fun.
Yeah, it was great.
I mean, what about you, Alex? Come on, what was school like?
It was boring.
Oh man, come on.
No, it was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to, same thing. I mean, I started smoking when I was 16, right? So we would go out to the back of the school and have our smokes there during break and lunch, and we get the occasional teacher that would join us. They didn't really care at the school I went to. I was surprised if we could probably just do a whole bunch of drugs then. They wouldn't have even cared.
Oh wow,
yeah, that's a point. We had a teacher. His name, believe it or not, this is the crazy thing. He was a French teacher, and his name was Mr. French. So that's a bit weird, isn't it, in itself? And he used to carry this little man purse, And
God.
yeah, he used to wear like a scarf. He was very sort of à Paris. He was very sort of flamboyant, and he would come over. He'd walk like that, and he would come over, and we'd be over the like the football area in the corner, all having our like smoke, like straining the cigarettes, save us the D, and don't bum suck it, and it was like you'd do that, wouldn't you? I would light a cigarette, and you go, "Hang on a minute, do you want it? No,
You
I
get
don't
it
want it
back, it's
now."
all soaked.
Yeah, I'm not. It's like, I'm not doing that because it's like I'm kissing
You
you.
can have it.
Yeah. So no. So it was like he would flamboyantly come over, and he'd go, "All right then, lads," and I would go, "All right, sir," because everybody would like, "Oh shit, we're smoking." "All right, lads. I think you've got some for me, haven't you?" And we're like, "Yeah, yes, sir." And we'd open our cigarettes. He'd go, "I'll have a few of those, and I'll see you later. French at 2:00." And off he'd go. And it's like, that's how he got free cigarettes. We
Wow.
literally, he'd just go around to all the kids that were smoking and like, basically, he was like the local mafia, the cigarette mafia. So he'd take all our cigarettes.
There goes all your lunch money.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But of course, the cycle repeats because we would lose our cigarette.
Yeah.
And then we would go to the younger kids
You get more
who were
money.
like, you'd get like the third year who was like the tough boy. And he'd go around to all the first years going, "Give me your money, give me your lunch money, give me your sandwiches, give me your cigarettes." And then we would be like, we would come to him and go, rough him up a bit and go, "Give us your money." And he would take all this stuff off of him. And then he would like get angry and do it. And then we would the cycle would repeat all down the years, So yeah, it was, it was that karma thing at school where you knew that you shouldn't, you don't get horrible with people. You don't beat people up. There's none of that. Well, I don't think I got into any. Actually, no, I was actually pushed through a window once at school.
Really?
Yeah, because look, hey, so I don't know. I'm not at school anymore, and if I was, it'd be a bit weird unless I was a teacher,
You think?
or I'd be in prison. So I at school, everybody was something apparent. It's like you had the nerdy kids, which were just sort of, they would go to computer lessons, and they're the nerdy ones. They were like, we had a few nerdy friends, but they were like the ones that just played like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff in the library. But we were like the cool kids because we were into I was into the Jam, and I was a mod. And I had all my mod mates, and there was there was the heavies, and there was the punks, and there was the skins, and there was the rude boys. So it was all that, that's what it was at our school. And
you're in between. You're the mod.
I was a mod, yeah. I was a mod. I was proper into like I've been doing me dogtooth skinny trousers and me button downs and me below shirts and all that stuff. And that was what we did, and that's what our thing was. But we were friends with others. We all, believe it or not, I actually had friends that were like skinheads and punks. One of my best mates was a punk. So it's like we all got on at school. It wasn't all like running fights and battles and stuff. We had a few kids at school that were complete rebels and angry at everything, but that was few and far between. Most of us respected each other. Well, put it this way, I live in the same town now where I grew up, obviously, and it's a seaside town, and it's got an arcades, because you got to remember that, as back in those days, the arcades, was the hangout, the place, that was the way you go. That's where you meet up. And we would, every genre of whoever you were, mods, skins, punks, the punks were kind of outside. They were always outside on the steps out of their minds on Scrumpy. But the skins and all that, we all had our own arcades, and nobody would go in each other's arcades, but you would hear abuse at each other from across the main road, which is the main road, the thoroughfare to the seafront. So and mainly that was Friday and Saturday nights, because everybody had been drinking like cheap lager or whatever, or Blue Nun or whatever. So so it was kind of although I must say that it wasn't like super violent, or there was no knives or any of that stuff. If you fought with somebody, it was done like fists and stuff. But
Mm.
yeah, I remember being chased once.
Good
like
old
that.
fashioned fist fights. Yeah, that's
Well, yeah,
when
but yeah, I kind of thinking back a little bit now, where I remember us being legged. It was three of us, me, my mate Nick, and Steve. I think it was my friend Steve, and we come out of the arcades, and you know when you get that feeling that you're being followed, and we're walking, right? We're walking, and it's like, just be cool, just be cool. And I'm like, be cool. I look around, it's like there's 18 skinheads behind us. How can I be cool? How much slower do you want to walk? And you know when you do that, like that kind of walk, which kind of speeds up,
Yeah.
speeds up. Yeah, we did that. It was like it was almost like they were like comedy walking. It was like that.
Reeves, we've caught up to you. The skinheads have caught up to you.
But no, so yeah, so we got proper legged, and that was quite scary, I must admit, because having like all those people running after you, going "Mod scum, we're gonna smash your head in" and all that, and it was quite scary. But overall, I'm quite happy that I grew up then, and things that, I mean, I know some 20-year-olds now, and they like, yeah, you got to go in. If you go downtown now, you got to go downtown tooled up, because you know you get a knife
yeah.
on you. And I'm like, what?
It's not
Knife?
yeah.
Who fights with knives? It fights
I
with your
know.
fists. So
It's
yeah,
like that everywhere, right?
yeah,
Everywhere.
it's I don't know,
Knives,
society now, it's all
guns.
gone a bit mental.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
guns. Well, we haven't really got that problem over it. Well, I
oh,
suppose there are.
here it's getting bad here.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I can't remember that. Well, actually, I do remember the last time I went to a club, but normally I'm on a really high stage and there's a big fence around us and nobody can get near me. And there's a door out the back I can get to. But yeah, but going into a club, I have to say that we went and saw a band, or it must have been a couple of years ago now. There's a city, Bristol, and I'll tell you what. There was like six of us, and a couple of them we'd been drinking, and we were on our way back through the city to get our car back, the lift back, and like, oh, I need a piss. I need to go to the toilet. And we're like, can't you wait? Because we don't want to be going in any of these clubs, because it's like they're all young people. And he's like, yeah, I got to go. So we go in this club. You could come in with me. Wait, what am I, your mum? And he's like, come in with me. So we go in there, right? We're in this club, and there's all these like, because Bristol is quite a heavily like student place. You know, it's there's a lot of universities and colleges and stuff, and because all the young people are out partying and stuff, you know, and we're in this club, and there's all these scantily clad people, and they're, well, young people, and we're like, there's three blokes in their 50s, like all looking at the floor, because I don't know where to look, because I don't know what to look at, because I don't want somebody to think I'm being like, you know, a dirty Derek. So yeah, that was a bit weird, and that made me realise that I'm an old bastard now. I'm not a young. What, you feel young in your head, but you know what I mean. When you look in the mirror, it's like you're getting a bit older, and your mind changes as well. You know, you think differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just so much about that area, and it's funny because you bring up a terminology like mod. I haven't heard that in years.
Mod, dirty mod, you dirty mod. Yeah.
I've not heard that in years. I'm like, wow.
There's dirty mod. Well, that was the thing back. Mods and scooter boys. We were banned. I mean, people used to shun us. I remember us going to scooter places on our Lambrettas, and the police would be blocking the city, going, no, you're not coming in here. You can turn around and go somewhere else, but you're not coming in here. And you were shunned. It was a massive movement. The scootering movement was huge back then. It was huge. I mean, you would have scooter rallies, and thousands upon thousands of scooters and scooter riders and mods and scooterists and scooter skins, and anybody into the scooter scene would turn up, and the town would be overridden for the whole weekend. Unfortunately, stuff would happen, and you know, pubs would get smashed up or whatever, but there's always going to be that element that just wants to get drunk and go mental. But overall, I went to quite a few scooter rallies, and I enjoyed myself. But sometimes you go to these places where there's a lot of people, and you can feel a bit, you know, it's going to kick off. You know, you go somewhere and you think, oh, any minute now, it's all going to go bonkers. And sometimes it did. Somebody would end up going, you know, and then a bloke goes through a window, and you think, yeah, it's all kicked off. We better find a table to get under.
Yeah, it's insane how things were. So, you know, we'll get into it in a few minutes, but I mean, like, your passion for like the paranormal
Yes.
and all that, and it must have started around there, if not earlier.
Yes.
And what sort of coached it along and said, "Oh yeah, I really want to look into this seriously."
My dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was my dad really. He was a member of Bufora, the British UFO network, and
Oh wow.
he
Okay.
used to go on to he used to go to all the like the meetups and the the lectures they had. This is back in the must be mid sort of 1970s, and
Okay.
he would come home and he had all these books by like Jacques Vallée and
Mm,
Eric von Daniken and all those kind of things, and I would I was quite young then, and I didn't really understand what the books were about. I would look through them and just look at the pictures in the middle. And he was to tell me these stories about, oh yeah, I went to the lecture and there was this UFO, and he would tell me this story. As I found it fascinating,
mm,
and I kind of got into it that way. But I didn't really understand anything about the phenomenon. I just knew that there were possibly things up there, and there were people trying to find out what they were. And of course, my dad would, in his way, would kind of guide me in some
mm.
way.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until um, I think it was okay. I remember him taking me and my brother to see Close Encounters when it first came out, and that was quite a turning point for me, because seeing a film like that as being so young, I know it was Star Wars and that, but Close Encounters was the kind of the flip side where,
Yeah.
oh, this could be real, and I didn't understand all of it, but I kind of understood it enough to have an interest in it, and of course back then as well you had Arthur C. Clarke with Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World,
Yeah.
and you had all these other programs as well, like Children of the Stones and stuff. Like kids TV was very there was a lot of like paranormal kids TV, like Tomorrow People and stuff like that, that got me interested in the sci-fi side of it. So those two things kind of gelled for me, and I was interested in both of those things. So that kind of moved me along. But it wasn't until it must have been like the early 80s when I saw something in the sky with my friend, and we were at the back of our house. We used to live in this really nice house, actually.
Mhm.
It was a 3-bedroom detached house at the bottom of a cul-de-sac, and it was one of 3 houses, and it was a really quiet area. And the back of the house looked out onto like a cricket field, so it was really dark. And beyond the cricket field was the coastline, so the beach. And I remember being out the window at one night. My mate used to stay over, and we're in the bedroom. I got this cigarette. We'll have a sneaky, sneaky cigarette, and we're out hanging out the window. And I'm looking up in the sky, and I can see this quite a bright light moving across the sky. And I say to my mate, I go, "What's that?" And he's going, "Oh, it's just a balloon." I'm like, "Well, yeah, all right, it's a balloon." And and then we're kind of just talking for about another 5 minutes. No, it's not a balloon. Oh, it's a helicopter, isn't it? Well, I can't hear it. Yeah, and then it just stops. It just stops in the sky, like out in the distance, but in the sky, maybe about, I don't know, a little bit higher than our line of sight, and we can see it quite clearly. It's very bright, brighter than all the other stars. And then maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes later, another one comes along, and it stops the other side. So it's 2 points of light, and we're like, okay, what's a bit weird. And then another one comes along, and by this time, I'm shouting over the banisters for my dad to come up, because I know he's got these great big powerful binoculars, because he
Yeah.
does a lot of sky. At the
Mhm.
time, he did a sky watching, and I'm like, Dad, come up. There's aliens in the sky. And he's like, oh, don't be so silly. Don't be so silly. Well, you aliens. And he comes up. He's very logical, and he goes in the bedroom. He goes, well, first of all, turn the light out. And so we turn the light out, and he's up at the window, and he goes and gets his big binoculars, and he's looking out at the sky. And by this time, there's 3 points of light, so 2 at the bottom and 1 at the top. So it's making like a triangle. And it's up in the night sky, and he's like, and he's looking through his binoculars, and he's going, good God. And we're like, what is it? Because we don't know. And of course, he lets us look, but he's holding them, and we can't really make out what it is, because he's tuned it to his eyes,
Mhm.
And it's like, well, what are we looking at? What are you looking at? Uh, and as he says that, the 2 ones, the points of light at the bottom, start to move away, from each other, and he's watching it, and he's making notes and stuff. Or I have to report that report it. I've got to write a report, and then the one at the top just shoots straight up in the sky, like gone. And of course, that I don't know what that is. I'm like, wow, what was that? And of course, we're kind of amazed for about, I don't know, 20 minutes. And then, of course, me and my mate just carry on talking about something else and playing records and stuff. And of course, my dad's like, oh, I got to write it all down. He's writing it all down. He's making phone calls and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was my first and only real experience of something that I saw, and I had no clue what it was. But the thing is that it kind of leads on to something, which is, to this day, I don't know if it's connected, and I kind of like shun it a little bit, because maybe about 3 months later, and nothing weird happened to me. I don't know, but about 3 months later, I started to have a bout of sleepwalking. And my mum, just by this time, my dad had gone back to America to carry on doing his truck driving and stuff. And so it was just my mum, me, and my brother in the house. And my mum would wake up because she'd hear things moving around downstairs. And she would find me downstairs, like in the kitchen, like playing with pots and pans and stuff. And I'm completely asleep. And she would like call my name, and I'd obviously go back to bed. I don't know. I have no memory of that. But I have some weird memories. And she got to a point where she was getting concerned. So she took me to the doctors. And she said, because I'd have these weird episodes of just being in the house, wandering around. And she was worried. What she was most worried about was me waking up and going, oh, I'm just going to go for a little walk down the road because I'm asleep.
Yeah.
And walking out in front of a car or something. I think that's what she was worried about.
Yeah.
And I remember that I went to the doctor, and he looked at all the things they do in the doctors, and he's like, no, he's fine. He's a perfectly healthy kid. Well, he didn't say kid, but child, And I remember him saying to my mum, I think it's hormonal stress. He's growing up, he's young, and it's maybe causing him to have episodes of like sleepwalking. But as time went on, right, I started to experience these other things. So now this isn't weird because lots of people experience this.
Yeah.
Sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
Everyone has, well, not everyone, but there are people out there that still have it now. And I had it a few years ago. I had it, and normally it's brought on by like stress. And if you have a prolonged stress, you can get these episodes, and that's what I had. So it started off, I would wake up at night and I couldn't move, and I would panic, try and talk to my mum or shout my mum, and I couldn't do anything. But then it got to a point where I started to feel that there was something in my room, and it was always in the corner of my room. It never moved; it was just there, and the more I looked, the more like panicked I became, and the only thing I could do was just go back to sleep, and it'll go away, and that'll be fine. And until I started to have these episodes of, I can't really describe what it was, as in like sleepwalking, but I would hear like a clock ticking, and the clock would get like louder and louder and louder, and it would get to a point where the clock was so loud that I couldn't hear it anymore. And then I had memories of colors, like rainbow colors, and not being in bed, but being in the house, and having like vague memories of being like on the landing or downstairs or somewhere in the house. And then I would obviously hear my mum's voice calling me, and I would follow it, but then I would have no memory of where I went. And then I would wake up in the morning, and I would think, oh, that was a weird dream. And I don't know what that was. And that happened, that must have happened maybe a number of times. I don't know how many, but it was weird. I know that. And it was most probably something brought on by, I don't know, stress or something. I don't know. But I did have paralysis later on in life. And obviously as not people know that I cared for my father. My father like died of cancer like 4 or 5 years ago, and
Yeah, you mentioned that.
I was his carer. I was primary carer for nearly 2 years up to his death. And I remember when you're in that kind of situation, as a lot of people are going to know, you kind of push all that worry and stress to one side, and you think, hey, I just got to get on with it. It's like anything. I just got to get on with it. And there's no point having a little snivel. Just get on with it.
Yeah.
Because you want to, you don't want to appear. I don't know. It's not the word weak, but you need to focus. And I remember one day I was so knackered, and my dad had this like care nurse that would come around and do all of his cleaning and stuff, and I didn't do any of that. And it was like I thought I'm going to go for a kip, and I went for a sleep, and I remember waking up, and I could feel like for a moment, it felt like there was a person like bear hugging me, and I could feel their hands around my wrists, and I could feel like their knees in my back, and it was like I thought for a moment I thought someone was on me, and you could feel it was like a really massive person, and then I thought, well, maybe I'm having sleep because I couldn't move,
Yeah.
and I thought maybe I'm having sleep paralysis, and I thought just relaxed, and it kind of faded away. But yeah, I don't know, that going back to me being a kid and it's following me through life and stuff. I don't know what that was, but that's what got me interested. And of course, having those episodes and having those experiences later in your life. I mean, you're a teenager, you're not interested in
You don't pay attention to those things.
No, you don't. You just want to go out and get drunk and talk to girls. And it's only when you get older, like in my 30s, I start to take an interest in the paranormal. And of course, in my 30s, I really did start to take an interest in the paranormal because I got into EVP, real proper, got into it. And I was quite fortunate to work in the music industry for 14 odd years. So I had access to some really pucker equipment. But I had a conversation as well, but do you need good quality equipment to get evidence? I don't know. It's on the table. I think that the higher the quality of the equipment, the less chance you're going to get of evidence because that quality equipment's going to filter out the
I've
junk.
noticed that. After the the amount of equipment I've used to record these things for the amount of years that I've been doing it. Yeah. Although I have captured some really, really good stuff on higher quality recording devices, but I mean it's amazing. Like you could just have like a crappy beat up analog recorder, tape recorder, or whatever else, and gather some really interesting samples.
Well, are you familiar with the late Lou Gentili?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We had a chat about that. I used to love his show.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, and I know you're pretty good friends with him, weren't you?
I was quite good friends with him, and yeah. Well, he had a little bit of a temper, a little bit. So people used to. Well, it was before it was called trolling. People used to troll him. So he used to get angry because he used to do a show literally 7 nights a week, and he used to work hard getting a lot of guests, and his shows were, I mean, they were like sometimes they were 4 or 6 hours long. He would just go on and on and on. But he used to get quite angry with people that were just being idiots, which I can understand. So sometimes he would be doing a broadcast on the because he was syndicated. And he'd be on the radio, and somebody would be getting on his nerves, and he'd be like, "Yeah, that's it. The show's ended. Goodbye, clunk." And that was it. And it's like, "What are you doing?" I'm joking aside. He was kind of, how can I put it? He played an important role in laying the groundings for where we are today with the paranormal and the internet. I think, with this. So. Anyway, so I remember you saying about equipment. He had this, it was a little dictaphone. I don't know what make it was. It was a little silver dictaphone. He took it everywhere with him. And I remember him, I told this story a while back, but I remember getting a message from him, and he said, "Oh, what you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, nothing really. Just sitting at home watching telly. And he said, "Oh, I've got something I want to send you." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, all right." And he said, "I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm going to send you this audio clip. Tell me what you think."
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Oh, it's going to be one of his weird." Because he used to record some of these weird noises like growls and stuff, and I'm like, "What is that? What you recording? You at the zoo? Where are you?" It's like, "No, it's just I'm in a room and this is what I'm getting." But what is it? But he sent me this recording. It was only about, I don't know, a minute long. And
This was from his house,
no,
like
he
where
was
he
on
lived.
right. So no, no, his wife Antoinette, she was a bit strict about stuff like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
She was a bit, she was a bit
My wife would
strict
probably
about
kill me if I
yeah.
did that.
But he was on an investigation,
Yeah.
and he was part of a team,
Mhm.
and he was like helping them with an investigation. And he came out for a break because he did like to have a little puff smoke,
Mhm. Yeah.
and quite a lot. He messaged me, and he sent me a message, and he said, "I'll send it to you. I'll email it to you." It's in
Yeah.
like a little file, and he sent it to me, and I played it, and I messaged him back, and I said, "Well, it's just, why are you sending me this? It's just some people talking, having a chat. I can't hear what they're saying, but what do you want me to do? It's just, I thought you sent me the wrong file." He went, "Yeah." He said, "Can you hear that?" And I said, "Yeah, it's just some people talking." He said, "Yeah, but the thing is that there was nobody there at the time. There was one investigator and with a recorder, and that was it. With this recorder, and it's like I'm listening to a bunch of I'm listening to a group of people having a natter, and
Yeah.
apparently there's at the time the person was in complete, well, the recorder was in
Yeah.
complete silence. So yeah, he did capture some weird stuff, and some of the stories he told me were he used to go he knew a priest which
Mhm.
was local to his area,
Yeah.
and the priest was a I don't know the full story, but I think the priest was he could do exorcisms.
Okay.
And he told me a story once that he went to the priest asked him for some help because he had to go and do an exorcism on a young man. And the priest was quite old. And he said, "Well, I'm a bit concerned that, he might slap me around or whatever. So can you come and, give me a bit more support?" And from what he told me, that when they went there and then the priest started to do his thing and, just reading from the book and stuff, and the guy was getting really angry and stuff, and they had to put him in a jacket and, restrain him.
Yeah.
But he was witnessing furniture moving around in the guy's, the apartment, the place where the guy was. They were like chairs moving and tables moving and windows like knocking and stuff. And he said it was just completely bizarre because the guy was like all tied up on the bed and the priest was doing his thing, and then it was all this crazy stuff was going on around him. And he said that's one of the times that he was really scared.
Mhm.
And I can understand that if you're in a situation where you've got no clue how all this is happening, and it's like, what is actually going on here? You look at exorcism in general, and they say, "Oh, clearly, this person's got a demon in them, so we need to get it out." So, but we don't know what's going on, do we? Really, when it comes to that stuff.
I would love, and because that's a whole can of worms there.
Oh, it
I
is,
would
yeah.
I would love to have you back on to just do a straight show on EVPs.
Oh, EVPs. Oh God, EVPs. I tell you, a little story. The only time, right? I kick myself to this day. When I used to do this, right? I did
Yeah.
for 3 months, and it all started off with the Unexplained. I think it was magazine number 1,
Yeah.
and they had the Flexi Pop record on there, and it
Okay.
was the recording of. I'm trying to think of the name of the book rapidly off my. It was a book, right? And you got a tape with it.
Okay.
Well, you got a flexi record with it, but it was a well-known book. I'm trying to think of the guy's name, but I can't. It's not my. I'm getting old. So anyway, that got me into it. And years later, I was in the studio and I had an ability to do it. So I had a white noise generator. I
Yeah.
had a nice tape deck. It was all analog, no digital stuff. It was all analog. and I did some recordings, right? And I really didn't get any. I got some, I don't know what they were, but I just threw them in the bin because it's like I didn't know what it was. And my attitude towards EVP is, if I can hear it and I can, and it sounds like a person, then potentially it's paranormal. If it just sounds like someone doing the washing up or whatever, then it's just junk. Just throw it away because you don't know what it is. It could be, and never tell anyone what you think it is, because never front load people with stuff. Because if you're going to do that, you might as well just not do it. Don't tell them. So my mate, right? He didn't none of this. It was all a load of old nonsense. And I remember for about 3 months I was doing it, and I wasn't getting much luck. I was doing it on my own after work. I think I must have been a bit mental doing that, staying on at work, all day at work, and then I'm staying on at work just to talk to myself. So I'm I didn't get paid for it, but but anyway, so he said, "Oh, I'll come over for a couple of beers and we'll talk to some ghosts, shall we?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why don't we?" So he's obviously taking the mic, and so he comes over, and I set it all up, got the stuff, and I said, "All right, you can have a go, talking to the microphone and just ask some questions, and we'll do a recording. We'll put the white noise generator on. We'll do a recording, and see what happens." Because I thought, well, different person, maybe. I didn't think about energies or anything like that. Just someone different. Maybe they're bored of me. Maybe they don't want to talk to me. So he's like, "Oh, is anybody there? Oh, ghosts." And I'm like, "No, don't piss about." So he just doesn't care. He's just having a laugh. He's drinking his beer. He's Hofmeister. And anyway, so I have a go. No luck. Don't get nothing. And then it must be about maybe an hour and a half. We'd had a few beers by that time. And we're like asking stupid questions, like "What size are your feet?" and stuff like that. just being idiots.
Yeah.
And then about, I don't know, I think I gave him the microphone, so just asked them it, and he's like, "Oh, who wants to talk to me?" And then I asked some questions. I said, "Oh, is anybody there?" Recorded for about 2 minutes. Switched the tape player off. Wound it back, and I put my headphones on, and I'm listening, and it's just white noise. And then about, I don't know, half a minute in, something like that, there's like static and a pop and a click, and then out of nowhere I can hear like a lady's voice say yes, and I'm like, yeah, okay. And I'm like, by that time I'm just frozen. And then about 20 seconds, 30 seconds later, there's another like crackly staticky pop, and then there's like a bloke's voice, but it's like like in the old days when everybody had that kind of posh twang. It was like, "Please reply," but it was very posh. And I'm like, by that time, my heart's going. And I'm like, take the headphones off, and I wind it back. I go, "Can you just have a listen to that, mate? Just have a listen." And he's like, "What? And I tell you, right, this goes on a little bit, but I'll tell you, he's listening, right? And I'm watching his face, and he's like listening to it, and he's like, what the... And first thing he does, he goes to take them off, and I push him back on his head. And he's like, no, I don't want to hear no more. And I'm like, "No, listen to it all." And of course, there's another voice. And he's like, "I don't want to hear no more. Get it off." So he takes the headphones off, right? And he's going, "How'd you do it then? How'd you do it?" I go, "Do what?" He goes, "Well, how'd you put those voices? You think that's funny, do you?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't do it. It's not me." And he said, "No," he said, that's not real. He said, "That's not real. I'm going home anyway. I've had enough. I'm very tired. I'm going home. I've had enough." And he left. He went home.
He left.
And of course, he worked at the same plant. He worked there as well, right?
Yeah.
And it was about, right, okay, so it was about 3 or 4 days later, right? And I didn't do, but that really scared me. That having that experience, it did a little bit scare me. So I'm like, I'm not, just going to leave it alone for a little while. Just not going to do it. Yeah. Just going to see how things go. And I just carried on going to work, going home, playing with Nintendo, that sort of stuff. And
you went from Atari to Nintendo.
Yeah. I went from actually I went from Intellivision.
Ooh,
Atari, Intellivision.
Yeah.
And then my brother had a Spectrum, but I always kept nicking it and using it because I like playing Ant Attack. And then, what did I do then?
What was it? Burger Time. I used to love that.
Burger Time. Yeah, I got that now. I still got that. And then I went to Amiga. So my mate got an Amiga when they first came out. He actually went out and got himself in debt just to get one, and they were like 600 quid. He went and got a credit card just to buy one. Amiga. So we shared that. We played that together. And then I got my first PC in must have been the early 90s, and it cost like $2,000. And the only reason I got that was because the company I worked for underpaid me for like 2 years.
Yeah.
So they were like, "Oh, Reeves, do you want a PC?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, if you're off, we'll get you one because yeah, we kind of haven't been paying you enough money. So
Wow.
yeah, we'll chill. What? We'll give you a PC. It'll cost a little bit more, but it'll, just as a little bit of gift because, yeah, the only reason you're going to get me a PC is because you can write that off at the end of the year and claim the money back. That's what you're doing, isn't it? But anyway, I got
tax
a PC.
write-off.
Yeah, so I got a PC out of that, and then I was like a hardcore PC gamer playing Doom and Quake and Unreal. I had a Voodoo card, but anyway, so what was I saying? Yeah, so a few days later, we used to do these like round the clock shifts.
Yeah.
2 till 10, 6 till 2, zombie shift and all that. Horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a phone call because I had a mobile phone, believe it or not, but the company bought it for me to use because they would call me to come into work. That's the only reason I got one. And they're like, he's like, my mate, he said, "Yeah, all right, it's very funny, that, isn't it?" I said, "What?" He said, "You doing what you're doing." I'm like, "What are you on about? I'm at home watching Star Trek." And he's like, "Yeah, well, you know how to come in and set the alarm off and then go, and you got a key." I went, "Yeah, that's right, I do." And and I'm at home watching Star Trek. And he's like, "No, well, I was upstairs and the door alarm went off, and I come downstairs and the door's locked. So what you got to say about that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm at home watching Star Trek. It's not me." And he's like, "Yeah, all right, okay. Well, don't do it again, all right?" I went, "All right, mate, bye." And that was that. All right. And that was that. That was that was the context of our conversation. Anyway, 2 days later, he's doing a week of this late stuff. 2 days later, I get a phone call again at 11:30 at night, and he says, "Yeah, I'm just letting you know. I don't know what you want to do, but I'm going home." Right? "Why are you going home? Are you sick?" "No, I'm going home because there's someone up here walking around, and I'm going home because I don't want to be here no more." "Right, okay. So ring someone then,
Yeah.
because I'm not coming in. I'm coming in at 6:00 in the morning." So he went home.
Mm-hmm.
And I went into work thinking, right, now this is the thing, right? I'm thinking to myself, he had an experience. He can't understand it. He's not into the whole paranormal stuff. His brain's going overtime, and he's having a little bit of a, he's a little bit, yeah. So I'm at work, right, and it's my turn the next week to do the lates, and I'm at work, right, and upstairs. You have a mezzanine floor, you have offices, and then you have each room they do different things. Like one's a duplication room, then you've got like the studio where I worked, but I wasn't in the studio. I was doing the lates because we used to work for like game companies like Microprose and software houses, and they would want all their cassettes for magazines and cover discs and all that. And I'm sat. The door was slightly open, and the night lights were on in the warehouse. So there was a shaft of light shining through into the room because I only had like a lamp on and a TV. And, and it was about 3:00 in the morning, and I'm just sat there. I'm watching, I don't know, late night TV, just some whatever. And for a moment, I see the light coming in the door break as if somebody walks by outside. I don't hear anyone. I don't hear no footsteps, but I see the light break, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, what was that? Maybe I'm a bit tired. Maybe I nodded off. I had a little like a micro dream or something." But as I saw the light break, I looked up. We had this big square window that looked out into the so you could stand by the window and look into the factory area, the production area. As I looked, because of the lights on in here and the lights are out there, it's like acting like a mirror, but I could see the silhouette of what looked like a person walk by the window as I looked up, they'd finished walking by. And I'm like sat there. And you know, when you get that moment of like, yeah, I don't know what I just saw. I'm a little bit scared and I don't really want to move. You know? I'm like sat there and I'm thinking, what do I do? Do I go outside going, oh, I'm really angry, I'm gonna duff you up if I'm not scared of ghosts? Or do I just like crawl under the table and like wait till morning time? And I thought I have to do something. So I go outside, and of course the lights to the warehouse are downstairs. So I'm outside on a landing, and it's very dimly lit. And I've got to walk the whole length of the landing past all these other offices, because there a bloke in there going to duff me up. I don't know. And I eventually get downstairs and I switch the main lights on, and I switch every light on in the factory. And I stay like that for about, 3 or 4 hours until my shift ends. And then when I leave, and I remember getting a phone call saying, Reeves, why have you left all the lights on, mate? What's going on? You're burning electric. I'm like, yeah, it's a long story. Yeah, I just, I forgot. You know, but I didn't say nothing about ghosts or weird stuff or anything like that. And it was a week or so went by, and we had these ink pots. Then they had to be kept really clean, because if you got ink in them and it dried out, it was an absolute nightmare. And we had these like tubs of ink, which you put in the ink pots, adjusted them, go on a machine, the rollers, and then they would print on the cassettes. And I remember one of the bosses came in early one morning, like 5 o'clock in the morning, to print all the blank cassettes, so that they could be pre-round, through the day. And I remember coming in about 9 o'clock, and he was really, really angry. And he's like, what's the matter? He goes, I just spent an hour and a half cleaning those bastard pots out. Right? And I'm like, why are you cleaning them? They should already be clean. Yeah, well, someone thought it'd be funny to put the pots in the ink tubs, eh? And I'm like, oh, okay, that's a bit crap, that. Yeah, I'm going to get a coffee anyway. I didn't want to say anything about anything that we'd experienced.
Yeah.
I just...
But you were thinking it.
Yeah. I just thought, this is all getting a bit weird. Yeah. And when that happened to somebody else, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'll be honest with you. Me thinking... The way I was thinking was like, did I open up some sort of portal? Did I encourage something to happen? Is it me? Did I, my sitting in there at night going, is anybody there? But I don't know. Maybe it was all coincidence. Maybe we read into everything, and it was just, it would have happened anyway. And it just, I don't know. That's the thing with the paranormal. You got to be so careful, because you can trick yourself.
Oh, I know. I often think that, am I opening something here? Because I can tell you, with the amount of stuff that happens in this place, it's the weirdest, the weirdest stuff unfolds in this place. And I have no explanation other than, okay, did I bring something home with me from that last investigation I did? Or, and my wife's always saying, you're going to bring something home. And some of the most unusual stuff, Reeves, I'm telling you, I just there was, I'm just trying to think here. We went away for about a week, and we came home, and unpacking, and my neighbor, my next door neighbor, comes to me and says, are you guys just getting home? And I said, yeah, we're just unpacking now, and just unpacking the car and getting into the house now. Oh, that's weird. Why? Because last night around 8 o'clock, it sounded like you guys were having a party. What?
So no one was in your house.
Nobody was in. Nobody. Absolutely nobody. The lights were off. Everything. Nothing.
Right.
And I usually unplug certain things, any electronic thing, just in case, right? And I said that there's no way. Nobody was in the house. go to my wife, just check to see if the nieces were over checking the house out, whatever, just making sure things were okay. No, nobody was over. Okay, that's weird. The music, according to the neighbor, the music was blasting so loud, it was literally bouncing off their wall. And wow, okay, that is strange. Nobody was home. I don't get it.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's really weird, and that's like, we'll be sleeping, and then all of a sudden, the bedroom door will open and slam shut. Just slam shut. And the thing is, you literally have to turn the knob to open the door. You can't just it's not the wind opening and slamming it or whatever, backdraft or whatever. You literally have to turn the knob and open it and slamming. Like we woke up abruptly because of it the one night.
Have you ever sort of decided to sort of investigate your own house?
The funny thing about that, Reeves, is I started looking on the back story, the history.
Yeah.
Because this is the first house on this property. Like we're on the land here. It's the first. Yeah. It used to be a farm. It used to be a farmer's field, and there wasn't anything directly going on, but it led me down to something that I'm actually working on a documentary to. Funny enough, about something that just happened on the same sort of plot of land, but just over this old woodlot. And there used to be a farm, over there. And what happened was one night during a storm, the wife went out to tend to some of the animals who seemed to be in distress. And upon going back to the house, she was struck and killed by lightning.
Blimey.
And years later, in the 70s, I found an old account of this guy who's talking about an experience he had back, coming home from work late at night, about 2 a.m. He was driving by this where this woodlot is, and the farm was no longer there, obviously. But he's driving by, and this is like, I guess he said the late 70s. And he's driving by, and then, he sees what looks like a woman walking through this cornfield, because the cornfields are still there.
Yeah.
Walking through this cornfield like she's in distress. So he's like, okay, that's kind of weird. So, he pulls over, gets out of the car, and he starts going, man, are you okay? Are you okay? And as he got closer to the woman, she completely disappeared.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are lots of stories like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just the rogue hitchhiker that gets in your car.
No.
Or just somebody that you pull up to give someone a lift and they vanish.
Yeah.
There are many stories where there's people like that you go to help someone and they just pop out of existence. I mean, I don't really know what's going on there. I mean, is it something residual, or is it something with intelligence that's trying to communicate in some way?
I don't know. I mean,
it's a difficult one.
If I had it, do I have it handy right here? No, I don't. I have this little Pelican light, and you open it, and it has 2 LED lights when you open it.
Right. Yeah.
And it's got a spring to keep it closed. I wish I had it handy, but anyhow, the thing hadn't worked for years. It wasn't working, and I had it up here on my computer table, on the studio table here, and I just checked it. I probably like a couple days before this happened, and it just wouldn't work because I was going to try to use it or replace the batteries or whatever, and it wasn't working. So okay, fine. I just left it on the table, and one night we came home from wherever, And I'm coming upstairs and I see a light coming from this room. And I'm like, what the hell? I walk into the room and here's this thing propped up on top of the computer hard drive on top of the case, opened up with the light shining.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, number one, you need to physically open it up for the lights to come on. So it was physically opened up and the lights were on. And like I said, the lights were not working for years.
It's a bit creepy, that.
You think?
It's a bit like I'm going to stay in a B&B tonight because yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's weird that I know I've spoken to a lot of people when I put, ParaTalk kind of came back together and I decided that I would start to introduce guests and have guests, other people on.
Yeah.
I wanted to get people who were already either podcasting or YouTubing and had a bit of a background in the paranormal. I didn't want to get people on that were how can I put it? I didn't want to get people on that didn't have any interest in the paranormal.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get people on that had an interest but were also producing content because I thought that would be interesting. And it turned out that it is interesting because the amount of people that I've talked to that do podcasts, do live streams, have YouTube channels that actually are experiencing or have experienced strange phenomenon is pretty much everyone that to date that I've talked to, and I've talked to quite a few people now, and it's kind of nice to have that kind of commonality with people where you think, well, I possibly have experienced something unexplained, but it's also nice when people say, yeah, I experienced something, but I don't really know what it was. And I think it's that me, I'm very well, I kind of I don't like to say, oh yeah, definitely that was a ghost, that was grandma.
Yeah.
Definitely,
you have a skeptical mind.
I'm a little bit I like to look at it from both sides of the fence. And okay, you could say, well, that's that you're just being make your mind up, young man, but you can't with this. You can't just say yeah, clearly that's a demon, so you need to be exorcismed. It's you can't. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just I'm not trying to be flippant or anything, but some of it is a bit funny when people say stuff like that, and it's like, well, how can you be so sure? How can you say, yeah, clearly that is this or that is that? And it's like there's a lot of people out there that are hanging on your every word, especially if you're someone that has got a following in the sense of you're someone that's been on the telly, because apparently being on the telly makes you if you're on the telly, then you clearly know what you're talking about.
Trust me, we have burnt those bridges on this show so many times. I completely agree.
I'm not going to drop any names.
No,
I'm a professional.
Fine. Yeah,
and I have a podcast. I suppose I'm a podcaster. But no, I'm not going to drop any names because that's not cool. And it's just not the way I do business.
Yeah.
But I have written to a lot of people. Obviously, always looking for guests, always looking for people with interesting stories, and I've been quite fortunate where there's a few people coming up, which I even thought, my God, they wrote back. I can't believe it. Because let's be honest, when you're looking for guests and you send out a bunch of emails, you spend a lot of time. Well, I do. I spend a lot of time creating a message, which I think gets across how I feel and what I want to do. And when someone reads it and doesn't respond, you think, you bastard. Do you know how long that took me? You feel physically hurt. It's like, what's wrong with me? What did I do? So I have been quite fortunate with people like Tom, Shrouded Hand, and Curious World, Kristen was, somebody that I met through social media, and she does a podcast. All those kind of people, they're all in the scene. I mean, Leanne, who I've done a few shows with, that was just an idea where she lives local to me. I met her on social media, and I'm like, do you want to come on? Because she said, I'm thinking about doing a blog. I'm thinking about doing she used to do a blog. I'm thinking about doing a podcast. And I'm like, well, if you want to do a podcast and you're not sure, have you got she goes, I got all the stuff. I got the mic, got the headphones, but I don't really know how to do it. And I'm like, well, come on ParaTalk and have a chat and see if you like it. And she came on, and I thought, bloody hell, she knows a lot about ghosts because she's been on a lot of investigations. So I thought, well, why don't you come on, once or twice a month, and we'll do an episode and see where it goes. And that's kind of been cool because I've met someone that's kind of local to me that I'm doing episodes with, and we've got things planned where hopefully with our schedules that we can go off and go to a few haunted places and do some on location podcast or something like that. That'll be quite cool.
They're fun. They're fun. I love those, Reeves. I love doing those.
Well, I've got this. I've got this plan. I've got this wish, should I say? What I would like to do, and I tell everyone that I talk with because it's my. I believe that if I say it enough, it will come true. I will manifest it. The universe will give it me. But I need to get the money first, because what I would like to do is rent a 14th or 15th century manor house in the middle of nowhere. So it immediately, you've got that kind of horror film. It's a haunted house in the middle of nowhere, and you've got a bunch of people who make podcasts and do YouTube videos that are going to be staying in it, and everyone's going to be doing their own thing. And at the end of it, you're all going to come together and do this documentary where
multi-view.
Well, here's the thing, right? All right, us three could go into a house and we could be told nothing about the house, right? Nothing at all. It's a 500-year-old manor house, and it's had people living in it, dying in it, whatever. So all manner of stuff. And each one of us can go into that house, and it all share the same space. And we could all have an experience, but each of our experiences would be unique to us.
Exactly.
But there is a possibility that not one of us would experience the same thing. And you might go in there, Alex might go in there and go, yeah, it was a bit boring, actually. I got nothing.
That sounds like
you
Alex.
might go in there.
That's usually the case with me.
Yeah. But Steve, you might go in there and go, oh, it's mental. Everything, the plates and swords and knights and everything. Cavaliers chasing me. So what makes that? What's the catalyst that when someone goes into a place and experiences something which is allegedly known to have paranormal activity, what's the catalyst? What is the person? Like I say a lot, is it the person that is the trigger? And if it is the person that's the trigger, has it got to do with how the person perceives what their environment and what's going on around them? And if they do, are they a form of accelerant to what's going on? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, and I mean, I look at some famous people. I don't want to say famous people, but I look at how a lot. I've observed over the years how different people from different walks of life and how they sort of approach, say, an investigation or go into an allegedly haunted location. And it's really interesting to see how, say, a person's religious background plays into how they approach or how things unfold or how things manifest in that environment when they're there. And when they sort of explain it to you, they keep that sort of aura, that the religious aspect and their belief or whatever else. And where to another person who goes in there and has absolutely no religious sort of upbringing, or they don't believe in any certain religion or whatever, and how that person with a religious background is explaining their experience to the person without, and they're going, wow, I just I never got any of that.
Yeah.
Where one would say, perhaps, well, I believe this, the experience I had was brought on by a demon, or something very nefarious, because I
Yeah.
shouldn't be here. And where the other person is, well, no, that's not the case. Why what you're doing is not evil. I don't get it. Why do you think it's demonic? I mean, it's or a person would simply go, well, that's easy to explain. It's not demonic. It's a rusting pipe that's off its hinges, and it's making this kind of weird noise. All sorts of weird little aspects that I don't know, play into a person's perception and how they sort of go in, and how that environment is affected by the way they are, like energy vampires.
Oh yeah, the psychic vampire,
Yeah.
which will latch onto you and psychic you somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I know what you mean. I kind of got a. I'm not in the sense of I've been to haunted places. Well,
Mm.
allegedly haunted places.
Yeah.
And I've had feelings. Um, I don't know whether they're just me putting them in my own head. But what I try to do is when I go to a place and someone says, "Oh, there's stuff that's gone on here," the first thing I'll say is, "Don't tell me nothing. Don't tell me anything about what's gone on here or whatever, because I don't want to know. It's not that I don't care. It's just that I don't want to know, because then that's going to play into how I'm going to perceive where I am and what's going on." Um, I also try to leave all of my expectations at the door. So
Yeah.
when I go into the building, I've got no expectation. I don't care. I've no belief about anything. I just go in, a blank piece of paper, and
Absorb it all.
I'm also. I don't. I have some friends that go ghost hunting, and they got hundreds of pounds worth of equipment, and it's like it's all it flashes more than my keyboard, and it's what does it do? Well, that will tell you if there's a spirit nearby. Okay, and well, that's what it does. How much was it? It cost me £50. Right. Okay. So, well, surely you're going to feel that if you're your body is quite a good a barometer
Yep.
of things. So, maybe you should take a bit more notice of how you feel as a person. I mean, I will say that there are tools out there that I could say could add to an investigation, but I think a lot of people, they do rely on the the spirit box,
Too much, I think.
whatever, to just do the whole investigation. Well, if it's not torment over here, then obviously there's no ghosts. And you've got this radio that's scanning frequencies, and there's
Oh, goes.
broken words coming through, and it's like, yep, I can hear it. It's telling me that it wants me dead, and you know, I don't know. I'm a bit old fashioned when it comes to stuff like that.
I
Maybe
am
I should
too.
be a bit more. Maybe I should be a bit more open minded and think, yeah, I should embrace the technology. Well, I do in a way. I do think that. I mean, CCTV, uh,
Mm.
heat sensitive cameras,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
Thermometers and stuff to measure the drop in temp. I think all that's great, but I just think that sometimes and I think that um, see, the thing is, I think that the internet and YouTube is great. I
Yeah.
think that ghost programs are fun to watch,
Yeah.
but I think that what's happened is that they've kind of taken over now, and that's the bar, that where if you're going to be into investigations, you have to be like that. And I'm not going to, once again, I'm not going to mention names because it's not professional, but let's just say that you have to wear a pair of skeleton gloves and a big pair of glasses.
We were talking about this actually. I think it was the last show. Um, that TV is virtually taking away the grassroots
It's massively, yeah.
of investigating the paranormal, ghost hunting away. I mean, I can't think of any, very few people, if any, anymore that use the grassroots sort of approach, the traditional approach. I mean, you see, Reeves, you see Alex's red lights up there on his ceiling. They turn colors when a ghost pops into his room.
I thought so. Well, he's had many hauntings this evening.
Oh, look, he's going to
It's very
change it.
popular.
There, oh, there's one there. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah, I mean there are still a lot of good people out there that really do a great job, and in my mind, forward or advance the field, even though maybe small, but they do a good job. Where obviously a majority out there now is just it's just redundant trash, and you hate it, but that's just the way it is, I think.
Well, yeah. I mean, whenever I see a disclaimer on the front of a video saying for entertainment purposes only, I know that pretty much everything I'm going to be watching is staged and made up. I don't know. I think there are some people out. I've talked to a couple. I mean, Staffordshire Paranormal. I had them on. They're a couple, and they go on investigations, and they're a kind of very small outfit, but they go to some really interesting places, and they do get some interesting evidence. And you think, oh, I don't know if I could do that. That's a bit scary. And also, who was it? Oh, Luke, Shadow Paranormal. They do the same thing. But what I like about what they do is that they go to places that you would never think to go to, like completely ruined places or places that have, it's just a field, but they'll do an investigation there, and sometimes they'll capture stuff which can't really be explained. So I find it fascinating. There are people out there that are trying to learn more about what the phenomena is and how how it happens. But then you get the TV stuff, and it kind of look. I love the X-Files. All right, I love all that stuff, and kind of the X-Files is a little bit to blame because that is the era when the kind of the spooky TV started, where everybody was watching the X-Files, and then all the paranormal shows came on, and I love it. And explain Unsolved Mysteries and all of those kind of programs. I love them all. They're great. I really love. Now, here's the disconnect. All right, if you look at the shows like In Search of, back in the day, like In Search of, Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, all those kind of shows, like pre-internet, when it was TV.
Exactly.
There was something about them that seemed educational, that you could watch them and think, yeah, I learned something there.
Well, you had to pay attention. You had to pay attention. You couldn't.
They were put together better.
You had no internet to look at. Oh yeah, and sort of further. Where this, you had to listen and pay attention to learn.
Yeah, and unfortunately, as a whole, as society, our attention span has diminished over the decades, and now if we're not wooed or wowed in the first 5 minutes, it's like, no, it's trash. I'm not watching it. You expect me to watch that? It's 15 minutes long, mate.
I know. Well, you're a musician as well, right? Obviously,
I try.
Yeah, but I gotta. We have to have him back on the show, and I'll definitely let you know, because I'd love to have you on as well when we have him on, because the reason why I'm saying that is because the work he does, he's a musician, and he uses some of the most, I don't know to explain it, the most oddest things that you'd never expect to collect EVP. But he also uses what he records as a part of his music.
That's
his name is Michael Esposito. He's actually a descendant of Marconi. What is it? The
Guy who invented the not
Morse code.
Morse code. I don't think it was Morse code. It was something to do with radio, but I don't think it was Morse code.
I don't know, but we've had him on several times. Super nice guy, and this guy goes beyond. Like, I mean, he was using a record player. He was using a record player in a certain way, and it was incredible what how I don't know how he did it. I'm telling you, but this guy, what he does is phenomenal. I think you'd really be intrigued by his work.
Really weird that you tell that story, because I have a story to tell. This is maybe 5, 6, maybe 10 years ago. I can't remember. Somebody a chap contacted Gareth, and he said, "Can I use some of your audio from a ParaTalk on an album?" And Gareth's like, "Yeah, if you want, fine." He said, "I'll send you the track when I've done it."
Yeah.
And he created an album, right? Of it was basically experimental music, electronic experimental music, and it was all instrumental. Well, there was talking on it, but it was all vocalized.
Yeah.
And he did a track on he did a track that was inspired by the paranormal and EVP. And Gareth and I were having a conversation about EVP.
Yeah.
And he took a segment of our conversation and put it as the intro to the track.
Oh, wow.
And it was,
that's cool.
I'm trying to think where it is. I've got it somewhere, because I remember Gareth sent me as Gareth does. He says, "Check this shit out," and he sent it to me. And I'm like, wow, because I didn't know. He just sent it to me. But yeah, you saying that just really brought that memory back. I haven't thought about that for a long time. It's weird, that, isn't it? When you don't think of something for so long, and then it just pops back.
Bang,
it's like,
something.
Oh my god.
Sparks.
It's just like, you got so much up there that I don't know. It's just really weird. But yeah, experimental stuff. That's why maybe that's why I find EVP, and I mean, I got into ITC as well.
ITC,
yeah. I remember, right. So back in the day, my mate had it was a VHS video camera, but it was a full size tape one, so it was massive.
Yeah.
And I tried it with just pointing at the screen to get that infinite thing, and then record on the tape. Yeah. And then I had a Ferguson Video Star video player, which had digital frame by frame. And so I could frame by frame it, and it would digitally freeze the image so that there was no scan lines, or there was no ribbon at the bottom. So it was just well, I wouldn't say it was a perfect picture, but it was a picture. So I did that, and I did a whole tape, well, nearly a whole tape. I just left it recording the screen, and it was just pulsating, in and out. And I don't know what I got. I just got shapes and stuff, and I didn't really understand what I was seeing, because I had no way of getting it off a TV screen. Apart from, I didn't have a video capture or anything like that. I just was looking, and it was like shapes, but it wasn't like features. It was just like strange kind of shapes, and I just thought, well, it's just just maybe it's like something to do with the way that it digitally freezes, because it kind of scans, it samples the image, and then shows it as a digital image. It was quite clever at the time, quite advanced, but now just pretty crap. But but back then on a 480p TV, because very all low res. But I tried it, but I was like, do you know what? I was like, this ITC, this is a lot of work. I don't know if I could do this. It's too expensive.
Is a lot of work.
It is, yeah.
It is a lot.
I tried the scribing as well with the water. Tried that. Nah, I couldn't get on with that. Just made me feel dizzy. Because you got to film it in fire. Yeah, I tried that. No, I didn't get on with that. But EVP audio, I enjoy doing that, and I did actually go back to it. I think I was talking to Gareth about it. It was years ago, and he said, "Oh, you should do some more EVP." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know, just don't know." Do you know when you do something for long enough and you just sort of think, "Oh, I've done it enough now. Don't want to do it anymore."
You know,
You know?
yeah, I hear you, Reeves. But the thing is, I always, it's funny. I was kind of getting that way with EVP, and then, I'm reviewing some old footage from a video walkthrough of an old farmhouse that we were doing some work at. The very first time going in there, because I wanted to put a little documentary together for the 10th anniversary sort of thing. And I'm watching this, and all of a sudden I'm like, what the hell? What? Eh, This is incredible. How did I miss this? And it probably one of the most stunning things. Oh, you know what? I think I have it here. I'll play it for you. Hold on a sec here. See if I can find it. It's just incredible. Where are we? Okay, I don't know. You might you might be able to hear, but I amp up the audio. Okay, here we go. Hold on. So,
Yeah.
there's talking downstairs in the background, but the camera guy's upstairs on the main level, on the bedroom level of this place. Exactly, Explorer. It sounded French. And he centers in on this picture, which is called Cherry Ripe. It's an named after an old English song by the same name, Cherry Ripe. And all of a sudden, you hear what? I mean, what did you hear, Reeves?
I heard a female singing.
Singing or like
Yeah.
reciting a nursery rhyme or
Or
something?
something like that. Yes.
Yeah.
Like a rhyme or something like that. But definitely it I'll tell you what, it didn't it, it it didn't sound like it should have been there. It sounded like, I don't know, it just had it had a feel to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It definitely, clearly, you could hear it was a
Yeah.
voice, and a female
Yeah.
voice. But yeah, that, and just completely didn't hear it at the time.
When first reviewing because that's just a walk around, just documenting the location, as I normally would do, is I'd have a guy walk through and just document before anything sort of before an investigation starts, whatever. But yeah, I didn't catch that the first time, and then like I said, I'm sitting down and I'm watching this. I'm watching this again 10 years later, and I'm going, "Holy crap! How could you miss that?"
Well, yeah,
You
it's
know?
easily done with
Yeah.
stuff
Oh,
like
I
that.
know. I
You
know.
get
But
caught up in the moment and you don't
yeah.
hear stuff. Like I say, I mean, I've recorded EVP and listened to a cassette and thought, I don't hear nothing, and then you come back to it and you think, well, where did that come from? And you didn't hear it the first time around. But yeah, that's definitely that's a really good quality recording as well, to capture something like that.
And that was captured on a Sony High 8.
So good quality, yeah.
Yeah.
So good quality. It's actually interesting that, I mean, I say I've done EVP, and I've caught EVP on low grade stuff, what I call consumer electronics, and
Mhm.
I've also got EVP on higher grade
Yeah.
electronics like Nakamichi and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but I've had more success with I've had more success with crappy stuff than doing high quality stuff.
Me
And I
too.
think that, as I said before, I think the higher quality stuff does filter out where the possibility of you could have some voices, it filters it out. It's because it's got better components, so there's better filtering. So I don't know. I have it's kind of like a 60-40 really. So you can get yourself a Curry's tape deck. Well, you can't now, but back in the day, and you have more success with that than you do with the high end stuff. But I think it's horses for courses, really, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly. Oh wow, we didn't even get to talk about what we were going to talk about. That's this is
Sorry,
the
what were we
fun-
going to talk about? Have we
that
just
was-
started? This is just the intro, isn't it?
yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh
It's
no, we were going to talk about aliens, weren't we?
aliens and
Uh,
close relationship and all that kind of stuff to possibly paranormal activity. And is it all one thing? Is it
actually saying that I've started reading a book. I was talking to Tom about this. We did an episode, Shrouded Hand and I. We did like a follow up
yeah,
because originally it was Gareth, Tom, and I. We did an episode. We actually did a live stream as well. Yeah, we did a live stream,
okay.
and that was like a year ago. 'Cause it's been
Actually, I
over a
do
year.
remember that. I do remember.
Yes,
Yeah,
time flies, doesn't it? It's been over
yeah,
a year. That's
I know.
bonkers.
I know.
So we did this episode, and we got because I was talking to Tom, and he was saying, "Yeah, I'm reading a book on abductions." I'm like, "Oh, really?" And because abduction kind of fascinates me because
Mhm.
it's uh, it, it's something that it's something that makes you powerless. It could be something because UFOs are all in the news right now, aren't they?
Yeah,
You go on Twitter, everyone's arguing. I mean, I went on Twitter the other day, and everyone's arguing about, oh, this footage it's not real, and this is on this person, and don't trust Louis Lorenzo, don't trust him, and don't trust this person. And it's like you guys are so busy arguing with one another. You know, you could have a UFO on your head, and you wouldn't know about it.
yeah,
So I think about the phenomenon as itself and where it comes from and what it possibly is and of course this isn't my idea. This idea has been around for a lot. I mean, Jacques Vallée wrote about this.
yeah,
um and we look at sort of the abduction phenomenon and we look at aliens and people say, well, clearly they're from another planet and they are little green men or they're little gray men, and people get abducted and they get probed and stuff, and that means that they're real. Well, not necessarily. Could this be a phenomenon that is something far more than what we perceive it to be,
yeah,
and it's manifesting in a way that we can perceive it? And unfortunately, that when we feel threatened, we normally see things or experience things that are of something that gives us great fear. And of
yeah,
course, aliens and little green men or whatever are in the public consciousness because there's been lots of films made about them. So everybody, whether you believe in the paranormal or aliens or whatever, you're going to have that in your mind already because at some point in your life you've most probably seen it or read something about it. And what makes me think about this is that I'm reading a book. It's known as the A70 encounter, and it happened in Scotland. It was one of the most well documented cases of UFO abduction. And I've only got like halfway through, but it's really well put together, and it's about two guys, and they don't care for anything like UFOs, and they don't care about any of that. All they want to do is they have a job, they go to work, they have a few beers at the weekend, watch the football. That's their life. They've got
yeah,
no interest in anything else. And they make a trip and they go to a place about 30 minutes away. They're in Edinburgh. They go into this village to drop off some equipment. And one evening, they leave about 10 o'clock at night and they're driving, and it's like a real winding road. It's up by in the middle of nowhere. And they come around a corner near a reservoir and they see this huge, what they describe it as a 3-tier ship on the road, just hovering there. And of course, they panic and they think, shit, I don't know what that is, but we're not going to be, So they drive because there's a gap underneath it. They drive under it, and as they drive under it, and this is where it gets weird. As they drive under it, everything goes black. For a split second, it's just like all the lights in the world went out, and it goes completely black. And they get this kind of, it's like they drive through what they described as a shimmering silver curtain. And then all of a sudden, they're on the other side of the road, and they're fighting with the car. They're going incredibly fast. It's like something smashing them up the arse, and they wrestle with the car. They don't look back. They just keep going. They get to where they're going. They get out of the car. They're banging on the door, and the people come down, and they're like, "Where have you been? We're in bed." And they look at their watch, and they've lost 2.5 hours of time.
Really?
And they don't understand what's going on, because nothing happened to them. They just saw something. They panicked. They drove away. They drive back, and they think nothing of it. They just don't want to talk about it. But a little while on, one of the guys, they start to get plagued with weird dreams and stuff.
Yeah.
And he thinks, I need to see someone about this, because this isn't right. He feels that something happened. He doesn't know what. And he contacts he contacts other UFO investigators along the way, but he doesn't get any response. So he contacts this one guy, Malcolm, who wrote the book, and he says, "Come, I'm interested. Come and see me. Tell me your story." And they meet up, and they tell the story. And of course, this chap's like, "Well, this is pretty amazing. You saw this craft and that." And the guy says, "Well, yeah, but I think something else happened. I don't know what, but I have a feeling something else happened. And how would I find that out?" And of course, then he starts to talk about hypnosis and regression. And to start with, he's like, "No, I'm not too sure about that." But after a while, because he starts to feel he needs to dig deeper and find out what's going on, both the men get together, and they decide to have, he puts them in touch with a hypnotic regressionist, a lady that's done stuff like this before.
Yeah.
And they have a number of sessions together. And the story that they tell is just so bizarre. So they're driving to their destination, and they see this craft, right? And from the point that the driver, his mate, says, "Look, I'm going to floor it and get under this craft and get away from it because I don't know what it is," they go under the craft, and everything goes black. It's like going into a completely dark room. The next minute, they're in what they describe as a huge room, a huge silver bright room. And they're both sat in the car, and they're led out of the car by these, what they describe as short grey beings. And there's other beings there as well. And they're really tall, and they seem to be the ones, instructing. Because there's nothing being said. It's all feelings and in the head. And they get taken away, and they get each put onto these examinations. One's on a chair, and they're in these cubicles, right? And when they recall when they're doing these sessions, they recall that that they're not the only ones there. There's hundreds of chairs, hundreds of cubicles, and hundreds of people in this place, which is obviously the ship. But what makes me think that obviously there's a lot more to it than that. It goes on, and they start to tell more about the story, but I'm going to spoil it, and I don't want to spoil it. Go buy the book. But what I'm saying is that when we hear a story like that, we immediately think, oh, well, there's something going on, and it's real alien, or that, the aliens are material, they're skin and bone or whatever. But I'm sometimes thinking that if you look back, right, in history, and I've actually got the guy coming on to ParaTalk. His name's Jason. He runs the Think Anonymous YouTube channel. I'm going to talk to him about this because he's done some really good documentaries on this. If you look at UFOs through the ages, and I'm not going on about like 1947, I'm before that, way before
years,
all the way back to the Roman Empire, where they saw weird stuff. But when you look at stuff like that, and you look at fairy lore, the fairies will come and take you away, and they'll take you to their place. And then you've got other folklore tales of things coming down. Well, there's one, I think it's correct me if I'm wrong, so I'm getting notes in front of me, so I'm all doing this from memory. There's one case from Ireland, I think it's Ireland, and it was way back in the day when when people lived in tribes, and they had a case where villagers witnessed these ships in the
Yeah.
sky, and the occupants of these ships, I'm not on about spaceships, I'm on about ships, boats in the sky, and the occupants would threw the anchors down and anchored on their village, and they came down from the boats to visit them, and they didn't float down, they swam down, and they swam back. That's just completely nuts. And if you think about it, now I must be going a really long way about this to come to my conclusion, or what I might the kind of the mindset I subscribe to is that through the years,
Yeah.
the UFO phenomenon has catered for us for the way that we believe and the way that our social structure perceives the UFO phenomenon. So, for example, as the years go by, and we have different things, like, for example, in the 50s, we had it was like Flash Gordon and the robots. And when people would say, yeah, if you look in some of the early unexplained magazines of people that have had experiences, look at some of those cases of people that they've seen. Oh, he looked like a tin man. He looked like a dustbin. It was a big
Yeah.
lizard man. You don't hear of that anymore. It's all
No.
like it was just a little grey. It was a
Yeah.
little grey.
Yeah.
There's none of that kind of diversity anymore. So
No.
where have they all gone? So, and also another thing is when people do have these encounters, because they are having something is happening to them.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, okay. Let me just say this, right? My name is Robert, and I'm an alien from an advanced planet, and I've got a UFO, right? And my mission is to come to Earth and study the human species, right? Because
Yeah.
that's my mission. So I'm going to fly to Earth, and the first thing I'm going to do is land my spaceship in the middle of a main road and wait for someone to come around the corner. Why would I do that? I'm
Exactly.
advanced. I don't need to do that. I can hide myself and find someone. It's just weird.
Yeah.
And yet some people have had these experiences. They'll have, oh yeah, I come around the corner as an alien, and then I had this procedure, and then they were gone. They disappeared. They vanished. And when we talk about the paranormal and aliens, when we go back, I mean, I'm going right off. I'm going to take a sharp left now. You look at Skinwalker. Look at Skinwalker Ranch, right, and the stuff that went on there.
Now you got Alex's attention.
Yeah. So you look at Skinwalker, right, and you
Yeah.
look at the stuff that all
Yep.
that cracker stuff that went on there, right?
Yep.
And you had the Bigfoot man that come out that was witnessed coming out of this portal of light or whatever it was, and having a little stroll across the field, and they went looking, they couldn't find it. But
Yeah.
they've seen it, and yet is that to say that Bigfoot is kind of maybe a little bit paranormal or UFO-ish? I mean, I love the stories of Bigfoots and the wild man stories and that. And
Yeah.
I love Small Town Monsters YouTube channel. I watch all their documentaries. I think they're excellent. And the one thing I do notice that is very similar to the UFO phenomenon, and it's very similar to some paranormal phenomenon, is that when people have these encounters with these Bigfoots or wild men or whatever you want to call them, they seem to appear.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, they're gone. And these are big blokes. And all right, I understand that you can be in the middle of a forest and you can look your night vision and you can be surrounded by creatures, and those creatures have learnt to be very quiet because they don't want to get eaten.
Yeah.
So yeah, but when you're 7 foot tall and you're a big bloke, and it's going to be a bit hard to be a bit quiet. It's clumping around the woods.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that there's that looking at the UFO phenomenon, the abduction phenomenon, is there something going on more in people's minds to to convey what they believe in. I mean, put it this way: if you've never experienced something and then you experience it, how do you cognitively experience it? And you're going to pull from your own memories. You're going to pull from what you know.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, when the explorers went out across the oceans, they would meet people who lived in isolation for generations, and they said, "Come, how did you get here? Come and look." And here we come in these ships, and they're like, "We don't see no ships. What's a ship? We don't see no boats." And it was only when they put them in the boats and took them out to their ships that they're like, "Oh, we can see them now." So I think the mind can be tricked, and I think that the UFO phenomenon is much more involved than just nuts and bolts. Not to say that, don't get me wrong, I'm not to say that the UFO phenomenon isn't spaceships or something, but I think that when we shouldn't be looking so much out there, than we should be looking inward a little bit, because maybe they've been here for a lot longer than we have.
See, that's why we need to have you back on, Reeves.
Why? Because I talk a lot.
No, because I want to dive more into this, and I wish we had more time, but I want to dive more into this, and like I said, I would love to do more on EVPs and other
Yes,
stuff. So we would love to have you back on.
I'm happy to come back. I can waffle to the sunset.
Get your information out there so people can find ParaTalk and hey, watch it on YouTube now. You get it on YouTube.
Yeah, you can. Well, it's very new on YouTube, and I'm sort of farming out the episodes a little bit differently on YouTube. So I'm trying to see how YouTube works with. It's completely different to doing a podcast, I've found out.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a direct link, but you can actually get to it from everything to do with ParaTalk. You just go to paratalkpodcast.com, and everything you need on there is a link to where you need to be. So if you just want the podcast, or to sign up to a podcast and listen to it or download it or go to Apple or anything like that, just go to paratalkpodcast.com, and then you can find a link there to where you need to be. And as for YouTube and that, yeah, I'm having fun doing it. I'm kind of I'm trying to catch up with myself at the moment, because I'm slipped behind by a couple of weeks, because I had a set of shows done, and then I had to work extra, so it kind of messed me up. Because like you do this, and it's you plan stuff, and sometimes things don't always go the way you planned. But it is a bit it's a lot of a learning curve, because before it was like Gareth would message me and say, "Do you want to do a ParaTalk?" I'm like, "Yeah, all right, let's do it." But now it's a little bit more. I feel a little bit of a responsibility to put stuff out there in a timely manner, because I've had quite nice emails from people who are really enjoying the episodes. So that kind of motivates me a little bit to sort of, be very professional.
You're doing a great job, man. I'm enjoying it. You're doing an amazing job. Like I said, now with the guests, bringing a different dimension to it.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm enjoying it, man.
Good.
I'm enjoying it, and I'll get in touch with you.
Yes.
We would love to have you back on.
Yes, I will. Yes, I'll be back. Don't worry about it.
Awesome. Take care, Reeves.
All right.
Good.
Take care, Reeves. Have a good night.
See you later.
Take care,
Bye,
everyone. Have a good evening.
Bye.